Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America, and you are tuned in to our podcast entitled The Secret War on Cash. And if you have not already subscribed to this, you should do it. You're going to want to do it because we're looking at some of the things that are taking place in our financial markets and our financial system today, each and every one of which is going to have and is having a direct impact on every one of our lives. I have with me my frequent co-host, Chris Agelastos. Chris, good morning. How are you today?
Great. Good to be here.
Good to have you here. And as mentioned in the intro, we've been taking a look over the course of almost a year now on this podcast at a lot of different things in the economy, a lot of different things in our markets, our currency, our debt, you name it. The one that we're going to be talking about today, which we've covered quite a bit, BRICS, the alliance known as BRICS. For those of you who are not familiar with BRICS, it is an alliance that was formed. The BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And what started off as just an idea has grown into really one of what we'll call it a world financial powerhouse at this point.
Yeah.
The popularity of it, the number of nations that have signed on and are joining into this effort is growing by leaps and bounds, literally day by day by day. So without any further ado, let's take a look here at our first article. And the title of it, A New Country Plans to Ban the U.S. Dollar for Trade. So this is an African nation that has joined this, what they call de-dollarization effort. This is Zambia, and what they're doing is they're dumping the dollar or planning this, quote, de-dollarization to help bolster their local trade. And we've talked about this. These nations that are joining into this BRICS alliance, it is a de-dollarization effort. And there are those, and we've mentioned them many times, like Putin, who would love nothing more than to see this world rid of US dollars. But the thing is, it's not that these nations, if you'll forgive the expression, it's not that they're giving the U.S. the middle finger, which they kind of are, but the reason they're doing it is because they want to get away from dollar dependence, and the direct benefit to them by signing on with BRICS is it will help strengthen their local or domestic currency. So tell us a little bit more about this, Chris. I mean, Zambia, the one of many nations.
Right.
Does it make sense? And is this something we're going to see more of?
Yeah. So that's really what they're saying in this article is people are all of a sudden continuing to jump on the bandwagon, if you will. And it's in this case, Zambia, they're not even part of the BRICS alliance yet at this point, but they see the benefits of what BRICS is pushing and publishing out there of strengthening your own economy. And like you said, it's not necessarily to do anything against the U.S. per se. Maybe in Zambia's case, I think Russia and China, maybe they have more of a reason to try and directly hurt the U.S., but to benefit their own nation and use their currency for trade. And essentially, what they're looking at doing is banning other currencies from being used in their country. And so obviously, if you want to do business there, if you live there, if you work there, if any industry there, you are going to have to follow those rules or pay the price. And in Zambia, I don't know what that would be, but I imagine it's probably more than a slap on the wrist. So the real fear here is that more and more countries, certainly in Africa, are going to consider following suit. And I really look at this as a long-term problem. I know everybody always asks, well, when is the dollar going to die? What day, what month is this going to happen? And it's obviously, nearly impossible to predict that without just a good stroke of luck. But I think what this shows is that over the next several years, whether that's 2 years or 5 years or 7 years, who knows? But we're losing more and more power and influence, and it's affecting our dollar daily. And like a slow leak, or in this case, I would say death by 1,000 cuts. One nation adopting this policy, is that really going to have an effect on the U.S.? No. But a lot of countries joining. I mean, already BRICS, I think, controls approximately half the world's wealth. So they're huge on their own. Now, if you add to that maybe another 10 or 20% of the world's wealth going this way of Zambia, and whether they join BRICS or not, abandoning the dollar, that can have a huge effect. And the death by 1,000 cuts or a bee sting, we all know somebody who's been stung by a bee and it's not a problem. And then you hear those stories where somebody accidentally disrupts a hive and they get 300 or 400 bee stings and they die. And then that's really what's happening to the dollar here. It's a lot of little impacts that are going to have a major impact in the end.
Sure. Well, and we had Dr. Jerome Corsi on our podcast when you were away a few weeks ago, and what's interesting is we discussed this, and I think you and I have discussed this in the past as well. There are still those, especially here in the States, that kind of like to downplay or minimize the significance or the relevance of this alliance of BRICS. But yet there's no way, I think that people look at it and say, well, they're going to try this, but it's not going to work. One of the things we talked about with Dr. Corsi is that the oil and the metals and mineral resources that these nations control or represent is huge. I mean, we're talking 50, I can't remember the exact percentage, but over 50 in one category and I think close to 70 in the other. It's huge. So my point being is these aren't just like taking even this article we're discussing here. A person may look at that and say, well, Zambia, like, what does that matter? In and of itself, it doesn't. But when you take the collective strength and power of them joining, as many other nations have, that's where, you're talking about basically a modern day financial revolution of sorts that we're seeing.
Right.
And that's where, looking at the second article that we wanted to cover here today, it talks about how, well, it's BRICS' response to the U.S. Bitcoin strategy and what this means for the dollar. And President Hopeful, as for many I know, President Hopeful Trump has been talking about this. The U.S. basically getting into the Bitcoin realm and arena. And the purpose for doing so is that our government knows the U.S. dollar is in trouble and its days are probably numbered. And this article, as this is being proposed and what the U.S. is hopeful of, and I'll let you get into it more, Chris, but the U.S. is hopeful that by establishing this U.S. Bitcoin, it will basically be the U.S.'s answer to the dollar becoming obsolete, and this will still remain as the currency supreme throughout the world, which would mean the U.S. would still be sitting on its throne. All sounds good.
Right.
I got into the article, though, which I know you're going to talk about, China is like saying, we've already banned Bitcoin mining in our country. We have no desire to get into this. And the thing is, because BRICS is an alliance of multiple nations, China, you can rest assured, is speaking on behalf of all these other nations that are already putting different alternatives in place. So what is this? Is this response, this U.S. Bitcoin, do you think this is just going to fall on deaf ears? And is this really not going to do anything to change the trajectory of where the U.S. dollar and our financial system is heading?
Well, at least it's an attempt to do something. But I think what you pointed out that maybe a lot of people would miss here is that by President Trump or the former President Trump talking about aligning the dollar with Bitcoin, the first thing that
President Hopeful Trump.
President Hopeful, okay. What that's doing is really the government acknowledging that the dollar is in trouble. And so, up until really recent months or maybe this last year, the government didn't really want to give any credence to BRICS or to Bitcoin or to any competition for the dollar. They make any competition to the dollar sound like it's nothing to worry about. Now that all of a sudden the tune is changing a little bit, I think that tells people what a lot of us already know, is that it is a real big problem for the dollar. So we do need to take it seriously and do something about it. At least it is a positive step in trying to align the dollar with something. Bitcoin is, becoming more and more popular. So at least there is an audience for that. But like they point out here, China has already banned it. Obviously, they're going to be speaking to their counterparts and pushing their agenda. And I think also, a lot of the people I talk to, at least, a lot of our clients and prospects, they don't like the idea of going to something electronic and completely digital. They still like the idea, when it comes to their money, of having something tangible, something connected to it. Even when they use their debit cards, they feel like, even though it's not often the case, they feel like those dollars are actually sitting in that bank account and being moved over to another bank account, like it's a physical item. And to go completely digital scares a lot of people. So I think that it's going to be tough to compete with BRICS, who is backing their currency with resources, physical resources, like gold and other commodities and oil and energy, like you were talking about. Those are tangible items. People like the security of that. So I think BRICS already has a huge advantage there. I fear that this may be too little, too late. At least it's something. I don't want to be a downer, but is it really going to have the strength and the weight to give us the desired effect? I really don't think so, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I can only speak from myself in a personal level, but I would not look forward to us using electronic or digital currency, even though in effect that's what we are using right now. I mean, we don't exchange cash anymore. The money that we have is
Right.
all just a matter of it being blips on a computer somewhere. But I think this takes things to a whole different level.
Yeah.
To me, it's always been interesting that, people who talk about, Bitcoin or electronic currencies or digital currencies like this, they understand exactly how it works, how it's mined and whatever else. I've watched all the things. I've done a lot of reading on it. If somebody says they completely understand exactly how that works and that it's completely on the up and up, I'll stick with, even when we were printing our worthless currency, at least it was a piece of paper.
Right. Yeah. At least it was something.
Now we've gone next level. And so that's why, for those of you tuning in, you should be owning some gold so that you have something that you can physically lay hand on if need be. So thank you for that, Chris. And we say it every time, and it's the same holds true today. BRICS, it keeps on rolling, and they, to their credit, I mean, they are definitely making moves, making strides, and changes, and growing, and all the things that really stand in the way of what we want to see here in the United States as it relates or pertains to the long-term stability of our currency. So if you haven't contacted our office for more information on this, you can do so at the toll-free number on your screen or visit us online. And if you haven't already subscribed to this podcast, please do so, as we'll be bringing you this information, more information like this, I should say, in the future. Thanks again, Chris, and look forward to discussing more with you next time. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.